Okay, we're live. It is 12:27 in the morning, 10/7/2023, and it's raining out again on a Friday, of course. Basically, my only day off. So instead of being outside on a Friday, I'm basically stuck inside doing this. So enough of my problems. So I got this one titled LE Fights Back, and that will be the narrative of the night as we go over some of the cases of the week. So let me play my intro, and I will be right back. I think. Pretty soon. All right, so we're live. Um, a lot of times people just basically pound and pound and pound away at law enforcement. But this week here, I'm going to go over some cases that happened recently where uh, law enforcement actually uh, fights back. So we're going to go first here to let's do actually. We'll go here to this. This is so we'll do this one here, and everybody probably knows about this case here. Um, this girl went missing last week, and then was found, thankfully, found alive. And just playing this one here because this is just absolutely fantastic police work. It's not a regularity where when people go missing, especially kids, that they're found and found alive. So great effort all around by all these guys. It wasn't looking good. I actually almost got in my car and drove over to Saratoga Springs on, I think it was Saturday, to help out in the searching. But we'll play this. This is coming from Fort TV, and check it out.
So much for joining us tonight here on Closing Arguments. Great to have you with us. A lot of stories to get to, but we We can exhale. We can smile at the top of the 9 o'clock part of our show. Usually we smile a little bit at the end, but now tonight, 2 nights in a row, we can smile in the beginning. I want to show you an image, a post from social media.
So here's the thing. I'm not going to claim that I'm better than anybody else, but all of my kids, especially the girls, I won't let them out of my sight ever. And the boy, Stephen, of course, he's a lot older now, but when he was younger, I used to literally sit out and watch him ride his bike every single day for hours and hours and hours, because I just wouldn't, I don't trust anybody. I don't trust anybody, especially people close, because you never know. But especially these days here, 5 minutes away from your children, 3 minutes is a lifetime, and you always have to keep an eye on them.
Because it speaks volumes to me. Welcome home, Charlotte. This was posted by Charlotte Cena's Aunt Jean, who writes, "Hey everyone, thank you so much for all of your support. Please feel free to take this graphic."
This is the reason why I don't go to the fairs anymore. We have a fair every year here called the Deerfield Fair in New Hampshire, and depending on when you go, it's just an absolute madhouse. It's usually held the last weekend actually of September. But we went there a lot. But we went there one year, and we had my niece. Me and my first wife had our niece there, and just a split second. I mean, you're talking about, mobs and mobs and mobs of people, thousands of people in certain areas. And I was always kind of heading up the back of the crowd, the family. And we just lost sight for a second of her. And it was the most extreme panic ever. We couldn't find her for 2 or 3 minutes, but I remember it was like the longest 3 minutes of my life, and she was just standing right there. But that's what I'm talking about. It takes a split second sometimes, and thank God she was safe and not taken. But these people here that abduct these children are waiting for that 1 second when you're not paying attention. So,
and replace Charlotte's picture on your page with it so much. And of course, welcoming home Charlotte, abducted on Saturday, 48 hours later, found alive, found healthy.
This kid here is my second daughter's age. So, anytime there's an Amber Alert near me or close to me, I'll try to go help. That's what you got to do.
Amazing on many different levels.
Well, cool.
But tonight, we're going to dive into a little bit more of exactly how this case was solved. We had some solid reporting last night on this show, and now we've got more details.
So basically, upstate New York, really not upstate New York, but upstate to New Yorkers, right around Saratoga Springs. Apparently, she went for a last lap on a bike away from her parents, and this ass face took her, allegedly. So, and she was missing for, I believe, 48 hours.
Let's take a look first at the suspect, and straight out of Central Casting, if someone's going to abduct a child in daylight in a state park, probably going to look like this. Unbelievable. Now, I always say,
but see, here's the thing, I know it's laughable with this guy here, but 9 times out of 10, the guys don't look like this.
We don't catch the smart ones, and thank goodness, right? Thank goodness that a lot of times it's people like that who commit these types of crimes. But I was thinking today about how many times here on this show, when a suspect is arrested and it's a case involving a crime against a child, and it's bittersweet because you've got a family that is in mourning, a family who has a hole in their heart forever, a family that never gets closure but can only get justice. Not this family. They've got Charlotte back, and the suspect is in custody, and they can get justice for that and get Charlotte and help her, deal with the trauma, the family deal with what they went through. But when you look at all the potential alternative results of what could have happened here,
law enforcement in this particular case, and the family and the girl did everything right. I mean, it just, the aligning of the stars, everything went right in this case. Except, of course, for the kidnapping. But this is what happens when you work together.
I'm still saying it, and I'll always say it when referring to this case, that it was a miracle. So the governor of New York took an opportunity to speak and let the world know how all this happened, how the state police.
This guy needs to be off the streets forever. There is absolutely no room for this in society, any society, period. So this guy here deserves the full wrath of law enforcement. Like Pink Floyd legendly said, leave our fucking kids alone.
The Rangers, everybody else involved, were able to.
Well, they didn't say fucking, but they said leave our
locate the suspect and rescue Charlotte. Let's take a listen.
What happened was extraordinary. The case started to break at 4:20 a.m. this morning, when the family's home that was being guarded by state police, when the parents were still starting another day at the campsite where they'd last seen their daughter.
I mean, probably not one of the smartest criminals ever in history, but that's a good thing, right? So
20 a.m. The car pulls up to a mailbox. Something is left. State police immediately go to the mailbox and identify what is a ransom note that had been left behind for sure.
I do know from experience, it's really hard to find law enforcement better than the New York State Police. I mean, they get a lot of shit, but they are good at what they do.
State police worked diligently trying to find a match for a fingerprint. First one tried and wasn't successful. Second one was to identify any other prints in the New York State database that would be a match. The hit came at 2:30 in the afternoon.
I mean, people don't realize how quick that is, right? Just 20 years ago, that probably wouldn't have been possible. You're talking 48 hours, right? So they probably got the fingerprint that morning. That's just like expedited. I think that in itself is an amazement of science, right? Like where we've come from. To get a fingerprint, get a negative at first, and then run it again and find out, that's just, you can't. That's just awesome.
There had been a DWI in 1999 in the city of Saratoga. A fingerprint was found. They found a double-wide house with a woman, the suspect's mother. The suspect lived in the camper behind. They had what they call a dynamic entry, a tactical maneuver, and within the camper, they located the suspect. After some resistance, the suspect was taken into custody, and immediately the little girl was found in a cabinet cupboard. She was rescued. And she knew she was being rescued. She knew that she was in safe hands. The suspect, 47-year-old male named Craig Nelson Ross Jr., is still being questioned. At this moment, charges have not been brought, but they are fully expected. The daughter was transported. Her daughter was transported to local hospital, as is customary. And that's all the family wishes to reveal at this time. But they are united. She is in good hands. She appeared to be outwardly physically unharmed. We'll continue to keep this family in our prayers as they heal. But she'll be going home. That's the story. Charlotte will be going home.
That is the story. And it's an unbelievable story, an unexpected story, but everyone is thankful for this outcome, which again brings us into the whole point of when those children out there are missing, there's a reason why parents never give up hope. Never, ever, ever give up hope. And obviously 48 hours isn't the longest that we've seen, but 48 hours, if this whoever had abducted her had jumped in a car, could have been hundreds and hundreds of miles away, thousands of miles away. But she wasn't, and she was found safe. Thank goodness. Let's bring in our think tank. Joining us tonight in Cleveland, Ohio, retired judge, former criminal prosecutor for Cuyahoga County, and judicial fellow at the National Judicial College, Judge Gail Byers is with us. Also joining us tonight in West Palm Beach, Florida, former police lieutenant, trial attorney. I'm not surprised, but even after a rough Sunday for the Steelers, Rick King is here tonight. Look at that. And in Atlanta, Georgia, criminal defense attorney, former.
I just started to not like this guy again. We don't do Steeler jokes on national TV, okay? You piece of crap. Just kidding. All right, so we're going to go. Give me 2 seconds. I want to go here. We'll get back to this in a second, but I want to give people an overview of where the hell we are. So this is Saratoga Springs here. So it's in this area here, but this is this is way out of the norm of New York City and all the hubbub. But this is basically we're over in here somewhere. So we go to concerts up here a lot. There's a Holiday Inn here. That's probably one of the greatest Holiday Inns I've ever been to. But basically, this is no man's land. So there you go. I'll get back to this here. Beautiful country. Upstate New York is fantastic. It's a little bit more open than New Hampshire. Like they have the mountains and stuff up there, but it's a little bit more spread out.
Federal prosecutor, professor of law at Texas Southern University, Michael Sterling. Great to see everyone tonight. How about this, huh? In the first segment, we can smile tonight. Like this never happens on this program. It is so rare. I really want everyone to understand that and feel it tonight.
This guy's a Steelers fan. He's probably really intelligent.
Right. I'll start with you, Judge. Your thoughts about how this case was solved. All along, many of us were thinking, well, they're going out, they're talking to the sex offenders that are out there, so maybe it was one of them. But it was a different way that they caught this guy.
Well, Vinny, like you said at the top of the show, we don't really catch the smart ones, right? So, when you have a suspect that's probably a couple fries short of a Happy Meal, they kind of lead you right to them. It almost makes you think they wanted to get caught. And I'm not certain who really leaves ransom notes anymore, but thank goodness this guy was dumb enough to do that and also leave the gift of a fingerprint because I can only imagine what law enforcement had to do to work collectively to piece together perhaps the several hours before and leading up to the abduction of this child. And the fact that, again, you have a suspect who's probably not on the highest end of the IQ spectrum, who left the ransom note that led them right there to the house. What I'm concerned about.
I'm also, pretty sure that this is not the first time this guy's done this, but allegedly.
Is I'm wondering whether or not the mom.
See, I had said a few sandwiches short of a picnic.
Shares the residence will also potentially face charges and or questioning, given the fact that the child's found in a cabinet in a double wide, and it seems fairly incredible to argue that you had no idea there was a live body in the cabinet.
There was a story over the summer too of a girl that was kidnapped. I think she was kidnapped in Texas or something like that. Forget where it was. And the guy drove her all the way to California, I think, and she was found and alerted people to the fact that she was kidnapped, being kidnapped, and she was actually in the laundry. And I forget the name.
That, perhaps
I covered another trial down in Florida. Same situation. There were like 4 people living in a mobile home unit, and half of them had no idea. I don't know how many drugs they were taking at the time, but it'll be interesting to see how that develops. You are absolutely right. I think the last time we saw a case, Rick King, at least me, in a high-profile case involving a child where there's a ransom note, was JonBenet Ramsey, and that was many, many moons ago.
That's the first thing that came to my mind when they mentioned the Ramsey note. I'm sorry, ransom note. Ramsey ransom note. So yeah, I mean, it didn't look good. I mean, it just didn't.
What are your thoughts here? Because I think at this point, we're all so relieved that she's back and healthy, but everyone is wondering, what did she endure for those 48 hours? The fact that there was a ransom note, does that give you reason to think that perhaps there was no sexual assault in this case?
For the sake of the little girl and for the family, I'm hoping that that's the case, that there wasn't any sexual assault. But when I think about this case, Vinny, I actually think back to my rookie years as a police officer. I had a lieutenant who was in charge of the crime scene for the officers, teaching us how to process crime scenes. His name was Greg Parkinson. And Greg Parkinson would say to us that a latent print is a chance impression. And so what he meant by that was, even though someone might touch something, it's not always that it's going to leave a fingerprint. And so the fact that there was a fingerprint left is no less than a miracle, what you've been calling it this entire time. We're so fortunate, and Charlotte is so fortunate that in this case, there was a fingerprint left behind that led to
fullest extent of the law, like whatever they can give this guy, allegedly, and more, just whatever. But if this guy's guilty of this, I'm pretty sure they're going to throw the book at him for sure. They should.
To her rescue and the arrest of her abductor.
I mean, this is just not acceptable. It's just, you can't take our kids. It's just, you can take the dog, take the cat, leave our kids alone. Period. Done.
Is no short of a miracle, and it takes me back to that.
Maybe not dog and cat, but I mean, you take one of my cats.
Time when I learned that lesson, and it proved itself true today.
Yeah, I wonder, Michael, this whole investigation would have been much different if there's just a note with no fingerprint, right? You've got the note. Apparently they did. I don't think they got plates on the car that came by 4:30 in the morning to drop it off. The parents obviously are still at the campsite. They're not leaving. They're there until they find their daughter. But the state police had been securing their.
This is just a case out of like bizarre. Who would do that? Who would drive to somebody's house to leave a ransom note in a mailbox? Obviously there's something wrong with this guy, mentally. Let's hope that's not a defense, but I mean, who would do that?
Home at that time. It would have been a much different case, and I think much more dangerous if in fact that fingerprint is not lifted from the ransom note.
Right. You probably would have saw police employ a different strategy, Vinny, from the ransom note in terms of how they would have gone about trying to find the individual that dropped the ransom note off. But to Rick's point, because there was a fingerprint, they were able to run it through the database. And even think about that, Vinny. Think about the millions and millions of people in this state of New York. Think about how long it took for them. This happened at 4:30 a.m. in the morning. By the time they found a print that matched, it was 2 p.m. in the afternoon. We're talking about, nearly 10 hours later. Yes, very fortunate there was a print, Vinny. Would have been a very different case. Police probably would have had to deploy a different mechanism in terms of the ransom note and trying to lure the kidnapper to a particular place, location. You would have seen a much different tactical approach. But because there was a fingerprint, because they were able to match it, within 12 hours, because they were able to locate this individual, it was able to be wrapped up quickly, even though for any parent missing a child 48 hours probably seemed like a lot longer.
Judge Gail Byers, let me ask you, if this defendant decides to go to trial, can he be prosecuted without putting Charlotte on the witness stand?
Well, I think it's going to depend on all of the cumulative evidence that is gathered. Based on what we know and what we have right now, it seems like it could be a fairly strong case depending on the charges, right? And so if you have charges...
I mean, what kind, to me, this is the problem, right? What kind of a defense is adequate for this guy, right? Now I know everybody's innocent until proven guilty, but this guy... I mean, allegedly she was found inside of a closet in his house. So, I mean, how does she get in there without him knowing, right? I just don't think there's a defense for this, but,
Charges that require the victim perhaps to give a firsthand account, either, of what's happened to her. And we're also hopeful that what she experiences now is more so therapy based on the trauma of being kidnapped and nothing more than just physically removed. But can he be prosecuted for the kidnapping itself? Again, it's going to depend on the collection of evidence. I think prosecutors could probably make a fairly strong case for a kidnapping conviction. But I think if I were prosecuting this case, I'd want as much evidence as I could so that I could keep my youngest victim off the stand. Because I'll tell you, Vinny, when I prosecuted cases, I pretty much had a hardline rule. If you make me put this baby on the stand in front of 12 strangers and tell this story, then when sentencing comes, I promise you I will ask for every single day that's available under the law.
Rick, what are your thoughts?
I love her. She's so awesome.
On how things will progress here?
In terms of whether or not this child is going to testify, I agree with the judge. Right now, we don't have an idea because we don't know what they're going to charge. And I think the prosecutors are going to take their opportunity to try not to put, nobody wants to put this child on the stand in front of 12 strangers to tell a story. So I think the prosecutors are going to try to put together a story.
I mean, she might want to go on the stand, I mean, it's all up to them, man.
Or put together a case where we don't have to put the baby on the stand. And I fully, honestly, in cases like this,
people are probably saying she's not a baby, she's 9 years old. No, they're always babies. They're no matter how old my kids are, they're always babies.
I fully expect that there's going to be some sort of plea offer for this.
They may not look like babies, but they're always technically babies.
Person, and with the hopes of a very long incarceration period.
Michael, do you think the defense will try to use that as a bargaining chip, saying, "Hey, we'll make you go to trial. We'll make you put that girl on the stand to get some level of a either reduced sentence or reduced charge in this"?
Yeah, I think it works both ways. To the judge's point, when I was a federal prosecutor, I handled child exploitation cases. We had the same sort of philosophy. If you're going to make me put this child on the stand, then I'm going to try to give you everything that's available. But here is the deal. if you're willing to admit to your crimes, here's what I'm willing to do for you. So I think it works both ways. I think both the prosecutor has to be sympathetic.
I mean, they may not have a choice because, like I said, I don't believe that this is the first time this guy's done this, nor the last. So, I mean, and we'll probably go over that a little bit later, but I don't think that this guy here just kidnapped this one child.
To the victim, to the victim's family, to not want to put them
Allegedly.
on the stand. So you have to bargain, but you also have to make sure that you're providing the victim with a sense of justice that they believe would be rightfully served for the abductor. And at the same time, the defense team has to be very careful not to try to force the prosecutor's hand, because if you do so, you're going to put your client in a much worse situation in terms of the amount of time they will serve if they're convicted.
All right. So that is the end of that. That ended a little bit. Let's go. I'm going to go to the press conference because. Oh, no, I want to go. What do I want to do? Nancy Grace? Let's do Nancy Grace, shall we? Well, I mean,
a
let's
miracle
not do Nancy
has
Grace.
occurred.
I mean, let's not do Nancy Grace, but let's find out what she has. I don't think I'm going to play the whole thing, but okay. So this was done 3 days ago. The guy's name is Craig Ross Jr., and they're going over the motivations behind this, and like we need to know.
9-year-old Charlotte is alive. Little 9-year-old Charlotte Senna was kidnapped from the Lake Monroe State Park and Campground in upstate New York above Albany. She was snatched by a local that we believe has a home listed in his name, 0.8 miles, less than a mile from the Senna family home.
She only has 100,000 subscribers. 100,001. That's weird. You would think it'd be a lot more than that, but a lot of people like her. A lot of people don't like her.
Home. He was found with her, Charlotte.
I mean, I don't mind her. A lot of news people get on my nerves after a while, you know, like Vinny from Court TV. I mean, at first I couldn't stand the guy, but now it's, you know, he's all right.
Live about 13 miles away from the Senna family home in a camp.
I mean, let's face it, it's media. They have to blow this stuff out of proportion and get the viewers. I get it. So it is what it is.
Her parked behind his mother's house. All of this was about 15, 20 minutes away from the state park. You want to tell me, because I'm not believing it, that this was a coincidence? That of all the children in the world he could have snatched and kidnapped, that he picked the one basically from his own neighborhood? The family says they don't know this guy. But there is a report that Charlotte may have recognized him from him hanging around her neighborhood. Good example.
This, to me, this whole case here is eerily similar to me to the Evansdale case in Iowa. And I know the Evansdale case is 2 kids, but the stranger abduction, I kind of agree with her a little bit. I think that there's a little bit more behind this story than just a random abduction here.
I know the grocery
But that's just my opinion.
store clerks that I see whenever I go to the grocery store. I don't know anything about them, but I know them to see them. Is that how Charlotte knew this guy by sight? If she did, In the last hours, this
Didn't he work for the post office? I thought he worked for the post office. I may be wrong about that, but I thought, I mean, it would explain things if he worked for the post office because he's constantly in these neighborhoods, but
guy, Craig Ross Jr., age 46, in a camper behind his mom's house, has been arrested. He has already had an arraignment in front of a judge. That happened around 3:20 a.m. in the town of Milton. This coming Friday, he will have a preliminary hearing. I mean, it's flying fast and furious in this case. But the big news is that 9-year-old Charlotte Senna has been found alive. And stranger on stranger kidnaps of children, that practically never.
so we'll go here. You guys have already pretty seen this anyways. Pretty much seen this. So there's Milton right there. Milton, New York, upstate New York. We were just there, but I just wanted to show you where he is. It's Saratoga Springs right here. So it's fairly close. Everything over around here is far. It's just really beautiful up here. I mean, Saratoga Springs is a beautiful, beautiful place. I mean, the concerts up there are absolutely fantastic. Most of these buildings around here are centuries old, probably. And, you know, it's a beautiful little town. Concerts can get out of hand, but there's always usually 20 cops or so driving in and out of the parking lots. And if you want to smoke anything, that's the place to do it. But, I mean, look at this house. This beautiful constructions here. Beautiful town. The racetrack. So there you go. There's a little bit of there's the Clydesdales. These are beautiful horses here. My daughter would love this. So there you go.
Evidence, and that evidence is the child. With me, high-profile lawyer joining me out of the Jacksonville jurisdiction, and former Fed with the FBI, Dale Carson, author of Arrest Proof Yourself. You can find him at dalecarsonlaw.com.
I will be right back. I'm going to let this play for a second. I'm going to go over a cigarette, and I will be right back. I think.
What a piece of crap. Have you seen this guy? Take a good long look at this. How would you feel about him snatching your little girl off of her bike? What about that? That was a legal question, Dale Carson. You can jump in now.
Well, I mean, we look at an individual like that and we know he's not normal. I mean, the sheer behavior of living or staying in a camper in your mother's home, you're 47 years old, have no visible means of support. We don't yet know what he does for a living. But these kind of individuals who make themselves stand out in a community are people that we should be concerned with. And that's true across the board. Secondly, predators will often focus on an individual, target them, and they become familiar with them through their process of grooming them for abduction.
Dale Carson, is it true that you're a former Fed as an FBI agent? Isn't that true?
Absolutely. And we cut our teeth on fingerprints, I must tell you.
Okay, that's a yes/no question.
It's a yes.
You are a former FBI agent, and your analysis is he's not normal. Okay, I could ask anybody on the street that, Dale Carson. You're the high-profile lawyer. You're the former Fed with the FBI. It's more than not normal. He just got charged with first-degree kidnapping, which in the New York jurisdiction is 15 to life. Okay? You don't go to jail for life for being not normal. He stalked this kid. He watched this kid. He knew her from the neighborhood. The family didn't know him. And then he waited. Think about it. Think about it. Like a jackal, like a wolf. He saw the children going around and around in that loop. She was with her little friends. And then they said, hey, I'm done. I'm going to eat supper. And she said, I want to make one more loop on my own. It was a third of a mile. And he was watching her. The timing, the probability that he just happened to be there when she went around the one time by herself and he grabbed her is astronomical. That
See, this is the thing. They're predators. They like this bird right here. This bird right behind me here. Predators. They wait for the opportunity. Because sometimes these birds here, most of the times they strike out. They go after the squirrel, and the squirrel's got instincts to keep it alive for a little while. But predators, these child predators, are the same way. They wait for the golden opportunity, and it's usually when you're not paying attention. That's how they do this. That's how they're successful. And a lot of people don't think about it. A lot of people don't think about it at all. But they're pretty sneaky, and they deserve to be off the streets permanently.
did not happen. He stalked her and he grabbed her. She still had her helmet on. The reason they couldn't find her in the woods, the dogs couldn't track.
I once saw the way the polar bear will hunt seals. Large seals too, not just little seals. And that's basically how they do it. They surprise. If they can cause surprise and panic, that can cause, the seals to kind of panic. And in that panic, that's what they do. They wait for the one seal that's just not alert. And that's how it happens.
Tracker, it's because he put her in a car and took her. Agree or disagree, Del Carson?
No, I agree 100%. Individuals like this do frequently track potential targets for extended periods of time, and when they see the opportunity, they often seize it. And what a blessing, she was found within 48 hours.
And another thing, all I get, constant texts and emails. Was she raped? Was she raped?
And a lot of times, I hate to say this because this stuff has happened for centuries. It's just back when we were growing up, this happened a lot more than people think. The difference back then is nobody said anything because there was no such thing as, protecting the innocent. If you said something to somebody, you were right off the bat considered to be lying. And people wouldn't believe it. But a lot of times it's people family. That's why I literally don't trust anybody. Nobody.
I don't know that.
With my kids, nobody. We would have loved to go out, me and my wife, a lot. But you can't trust anybody. So you end up staying home. Better off.
But I do know this, she's alive. She's alive.
And if I go somewhere and my kids aren't welcome, then I'm not going. Period. I don't like people anyway, so there you go.
That is the banner. The obsession with whether or not this child was raped. I don't know that answer yet. I pray to God, no. Now, one thing that encourages me to believe she was not sex assaulted, Del Carson, is that
Like if I'm going somewhere and the function I'm going to is kind of not allowing kids to go there, guess what? I'm not fucking going.
Idiot wrote a ransom note and that he personally delivered it with his fingerprints on it. So this may have been a calculated kidnapping strictly for ransom money.
Well, let's hope it turns out that way, but it doesn't matter. She was abducted. It's a first-degree life felony. He should be in prison forever. And this is the worst nightmare of any parent, is to allow your child a little bit of freedom and then to find out somebody's been stalking them for a while and abducts them.
Gosh.
And most, as you know, don't end up as...
I'm with her. That's why I'm on Zoloft, you know. I just, you know.
gloriously as this one did.
You know, I'm thinking about what you just said, and I was telling a story earlier. Del Carson, you know, our family, me, David, excuse me.
But that's the thing, you know, again, they want you to panic. They want you to, that's what they're in it for. You know, that's the game. So the less panicked you are, these cops, law enforcement, family, everybody did everything correct. And that's why she's home safe.
I mean, David and I and the twins, we love to camp. We love to RV, and we do it a lot. At every RV spot we visited, and that's from here to Nashville, to St. Louis, to upstate New York, to Chicago, to the Grand Tetons, you name it. We always go to an RV camp or camp under the stars. And at every RV camp, my son, John David, takes his bike.
But kids, you know, kids are taken from grocery stores. Kids are taken right from their parents' hands. I mean, you watch any type of cold case file, kids are abducted right in the open. I mean, you don't have to be camping. You don't have to be anywhere. It's all about these people are waiting for you to just not pay attention. They work just like everybody else. They have tactics. So I mean, it's crazy.
He's strapped to the RV, and he goes around and around the RV park. I'm always so freaked out because of what you and I do for a living, Dale Carson, that I jog and then ultimately end up walking, because he'll do it for an hour. I can't keep up with him, but I'm on the trail. And many times he'll be around.
You know, you look at, you know, some of what the wildlife and how they treat their little ones. You know, a female elephant will literally destroy anything that gets in its way, and the entire community of elephants will rally around that mother if anything tries to attack that. And it's not good, right? You just don't want to be that lion that gets trampled by a really angry female elephant, putting it that way.
And come up behind me and circle and come back. But I've done the same exact thing that this family did. And this was just a third of a mile, Dale Carson.
Well, remember that this individual had to follow them to this location, because otherwise, how would he know where they were going for their camping trip? I mean, this gets more frightening the more we look into it and the history of it. And it's a warning to all parents when you see something that's unusual, somebody frequently shows up who doesn't have any reason for being there, no reason whatsoever, there's a potential problem. And today it seems as though we all have to have our necks on a swivel, making certain that something evil doesn't find us.
You know, Dale Carson, you're so right. I'm on high alert all the time. It's not a good way to live, but you know, after.
All right, so that's the end of that. I'm going to go to another case here. Thank God she's safe. I literally almost, I was pretty close. I was pretty close to getting in the car, calling in, saying, guess what? I'm not going to make it in tonight. You're going to have to find somebody else. And heading to Saratoga Springs. I mean, it's only about 2.5 hours away from me, so I can get there and help out. But thank God I didn't, because she was found. So, all right, so we're going to go to this Crystal Rogers case. This is another case where law enforcement strikes back. I did this a little bit last week, but this is another case. Great police work, and just when you think, you know, cops aren't paying attention, they are. And these cases are not sometimes that easy to figure out. And sometimes there's a lot of stuff they want to do. They're just, you know, hands are tied sometimes. But in this case here, this is where I think the cops knew who did it. They just needed to prove it. So we'll go to this one here. This was done 9 days ago, and then we'll follow up with something sooner. All right, so let's share this with everybody. I just should make sure my mic is still on, because we do that all the time. So this is the case of Crystal Rogers. And to give a little bit, 8 years ago, after being named the suspect in Crystal Rogers' disappearance, her ex-boyfriend, Brooks Hawk, has been arrested and charged with her murder. Rogers' body has still not been found. And this was a major breakthrough again in this case, and law enforcement and the prosecutors and everybody that's involved in this case have been methodical in the way they compile the evidence against this guy, because, you know, a lot of people like to think, well, just go arrest the guy. Well, you just can't do that. You have to have a methodical approach, and sometimes it takes a while. But it seems like, again, law enforcement in this case did a fantastic freaking job. But innocent until proven guilty. But in my opinion, this guy is pretty guilty.
15. Crystal Rogers, a 35-year-old mother of 5 children from Bardstown, Kentucky, was at her boyfriend Brooks Houck's family farm. Brooks and Crystal had been together for over a year and shared a child, Crystal's youngest. But after that, no one has seen Crystal. She vanished. This was devastating.
Whoops. Okay, hold on a second. Sorry. Let's go back a little bit. Sorry.
Brooks Houck is under arrest, charged in her murder. Houck had been a suspect for years. He had spoken to investigators. He had his...
Let's apparently I haven't had enough coffee. There we go.
Rogers, a 35-year-old mother of 5 children from Bardstown, Kentucky, was at her boyfriend Brooks Houck's family farm. Brooks and Crystal had been together for over a year and shared a child, Crystal's youngest. But after that, no one has seen Crystal. She vanished. This was devastating for Crystal's parents, and her dad, Tommy Ballard, made it his mission to find his missing daughter. He searched for her every day for 16 months until someone ended his search with a gunshot to his chest.
All right, so let's go here to give everybody an idea of where we are here. We're from upstate New York all the way to Bardstown, Kentucky. And this is Bardstown, Kentucky here. I've never been to Kentucky. Right in here. So Lexington, Bardstown. Basically due west. All right, so let's get back to the video.
It's now 8 years later, and Crystal is still missing, but now a major development.
I mean, what a horrible blow, the father, right? Like, just, it's awful. This guy who did this is a piece of crap.
Development in the case. Brooks Houck is under arrest, charged in her murder. Houck had been a suspect for years.
I mean, this is why I would have been a really horrible cop, because I thought this guy was guilty from the interview. If you watch the interview, we might, this guy's guilty of sin. There's just no way he didn't do it. But, you got to have evidence. You got to have proof. Hunches just don't hold up in court. So you got to build a case. And, because that's why they have defense teams. If you don't have, I mean, look what's going on in the Delphi case right now. Methodical approach to these guys. They're very capable of getting away with it.
He had spoken to investigators. He had his property searched. And tonight, we get all the latest in the arrest and piece together what happened as we continue to investigate the disappearance of Crystal Rogers.
I'm Vinny Politan. Great to have you with us tonight. It's a story we've been covering now for years here on this show. And it goes back even further. The disappearance of Crystal Rogers, a mother of 5. Now, throughout all this, there has been a longtime suspect, Brooks Houck, the man she was with, the father of her youngest child, longtime suspect.
It's almost always the case, right? I think it's like 7 out of 10 times it's going to be somebody close like this. But you got to prove it. Proving it sometimes is a lot harder.
And whether you're a podcaster or whether you are someone just kind of, hey, what do we think happened here? A little common sense. And everyone was looking in that same.
I actually think my mic mutes by itself. I don't know how that's even possible, because I know that I don't do it. So,
direction that obviously investigators were looking. The last person to see her alive. The man who was the father of her youngest child, the man who was with her the day she disappeared. All of this significant, and until you can eliminate that person, they'll always be on the radar. But here there were other things that were very, very suspicious. Now, you can put circumstances together as a prosecutor, which I was, but you only get one chance in that courtroom. And many times, whether it's the investigators or the prosecutor, you look at the case and you say, do we have enough here? We are convinced.
Like it's so one-sided in these cases. You know, that's all I'm saying, right? Like if it's a domestic thing, it's almost always the husband. It's almost always the partner. And it's rare that it's not, in my opinion. It's rare that it's an outside person. But it does happen. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but it's rare.
That we're looking in the right place. And these pieces make sense. But we need more. We need more inside that courtroom, because you know how great the burden is that prosecutors have. The defendant, as our Constitution says, is presumed innocent. They come into the courtroom, the judge tells them, his lawyer tells them, this guy's presumed innocent. Then you have to prove each and every element of the crime beyond a reasonable doubt. And that is a tough burden in a case where you have not recovered someone's remains or body. Very difficult. And in this case, they had circumstances that led to searches and other things that they did in the case, including questioning him. But prosecutors said, we need more. We need more. Inside information is what they needed. Where do you get inside information? You get it from a co-conspirator. You put him in the interrogation room and you ask him questions, and maybe you cut a deal with them. And from them, you get the inside information. And that's what prosecutors need sometimes. The inside information that will put the pieces together for that jury in the courtroom. Right? You've got this piece of evidence here, this piece of evidence here, another piece over here.
Is it Columbus Day weekend? Yeah, it's Columbus Day weekend. Huh. Okay.
Right? And to glue them all together.
Happy Columbus Day weekend, everybody.
To give them the context.
I don't even know if that's a thing. Is Columbus Day weekend a thing, or is it just a day?
If you have someone who's in on it to whatever degree, who can tell you things that you couldn't learn anywhere else, that's when you have enough as a prosecutor, if you've got that other circumstantial evidence. Now, in this case, again, they've been very, very tight-lipped, to put it mildly. They've released some things, and we've seen the searches, et cetera. So they've made an arrest here, but don't forget, and I don't want you to forget, because Crystal's dad, Tommy Ballard, he was murdered. Somebody shot him in the chest. 16 months, he was leading the charge in the search for his daughter, doing what so many of the parents that are watching right now would do. And this dad was out there, and this dad was shot and killed. That's the only reason he stopped searching for it, because he was murdered. So what about dad? Is there anything connecting his murder to the accused in this case, or anyone else connected to the accused? I'm sure that investigation is going on as well. Well, good news tonight, folks, because we have a great affiliate. Scripps News in Lexington, Kentucky, has been diving deep into this story throughout, and Angie Bevan has this information for us tonight.
July 5th, 2015, 35-year-old Crystal Rogers, a mother of 5 children, is reported missing by her mother. That same day, Rogers' car is found along the Bluegrass Parkway with a flat tire and her phone, keys, and purse still inside. Rogers was last seen 2 days earlier at the home of Brooks Houck, her boyfriend at the time, with whom she shares 1 child. In October of 2015, 3 months after her disappearance, police announced Crystal Rogers is presumed dead. The Nelson County Sheriff's Office names Brooks Houck as their prime suspect in Rogers' disappearance. But he was not arrested or charged in those early days and years of the investigation. In the following months, Crystal's family would work tirelessly, conducting searches, speaking to the media, pushing and hoping for anyone with information on what happened to her to come forward. November 19th, 2016, about 16 months after Crystal Rogers' disappearance, her father, Tommy Ballard, is shot and killed while out hunting early in the morning. No one has been named.
So apparently, that happened to me years and years ago. I don't remember anything because I was too young. But there's a place around here called Kenny Lake Park, and apparently I went missing and I was gone for, I don't know, an hour or so. So I don't know the exact details, like I said, because I was, I don't know, 3 or 4. But that's what people tell me. So.
Named a suspect in his death. Years pass, and in August of 2020, the FBI steps in, searching the homes of Brooks Houck and his brother Nick, a then Bardstown police officer, as well.
So who knows? Maybe I'm not who I think I am. No.
Well as the Houck family farm. 1 year later, in August of 2021, the FBI finds what
Perhaps my parents were trying to get rid of me. That'd be hilarious.
they call items of interest after digging up a concrete
It's not funny.
driveway at a rental home in a Bardstown neighborhood, a property owned by Brooks Houck. Still, more than 8 years pass from the time of Rogers' disappearance in 2015 with no arrests or charges. Then, August 15th, 2023, state police arrest 32-year-old Joseph Lawson, charging him with criminal conspiracy to commit murder and tampering with evidence. Today, the FBI arrested Brooks Houck, charging him with murder and tampering with evidence. A judge set his bond at $10 million.
And joining us now from Lexington, Kentucky, anchor at Scripps News Lexington, Nancy Cox is back with us. Nancy, great to see you. Thanks so much. Long-time suspect, long time coming. What were you surprised today when?
I mean, what average everyday person has $10 million disposable, right? Why even set a bond if it's going to be this high, right?
And all of this went down.
Surprised is probably not the word, because in August, when Joseph Lawson was arrested, we felt this had to be coming. But yet, when you get that news, it still sort of shocks the system, because after 8 years, after everyone in that community, her family saying this had to be Brooks Houck, you just couldn't believe they were ever going to actually arrest him. And then we wake up this morning and we see him being led into jail. And it was a very surreal moment. I can only imagine what it was like for Sherry Ballard, Crystal's mother.
Absolutely. So what do we know about Brooks Houck? The first question I always have going into these when someone is accused, is this a guy who's got wealth, some level of money? I see the bond is at $10 million. What do we know about his background and what his ability is going to be to defend himself?
I think it's safe to say he'll be able to pay for an attorney, any attorney that he wants. He's a businessman. He has several rental properties. He does some construction. And then there's talk of other activities that he may be involved in. Again, all conjecture at this point. But the mere fact his bond was set at $10 million, I think that indicates that it is believed that Houck is a man of means.
I want to put up the statement from the FBI today, and this is how many of us found out about this. FBI, Louisville, and the Kentucky State Police have arrested Brooks Houck without incident on charges stemming from the Crystal Rogers investigation. The Houck indictment remains sealed, and additional details will be revealed during Houck's arraignment in early October in the Nelson County Circuit Court. So is there any other information that you all have uncovered?
Very little. We know the actual charges against him. It is murder or I should say it is conspiracy to commit murder and tampering with evidence. And we know that's a charge that's tacked on to just about every case. So we don't know a lot. We know what the bond is. We know what the charges are. But everyone's going to be waiting for that October 5th arraignment to see if we get anything else. The actual indictment was unsealed today, but great portions of it were redacted. So as they've done all along since the FBI took this case, they're being extremely quiet.
So there is a death penalty in Kentucky. Capital punishment is a legal penalty in the United States of Kentucky. Despite remaining a legal penalty, there have been no executions in Kentucky since 2008 and only 3 since 1976. Not saying this is a death penalty case, but they do have that in Kentucky.
About what they know, sending only the message that they will not give up. A lot of people thought that was a promise that couldn't be kept.
This is the interview right here that I'm talking about. I mean, this is just, from this interview, I could tell he wasn't fooling me.
But lo and behold, what many of us thought we'd never see, Brooks Houck behind bars tonight.
So with those redactions, sometimes indictments are sealed because and this is a conspiracy case, because there's other people who are on the radar who they may be getting ready to arrest, and they want to keep some information away from those people or persons. Any indication one way or the other, if they were just redacting specifics about what happened or people potentially involved in this alleged conspiracy?
All of the above. They've redacted what led to the actual evidence against Houck that justified an arrest. We don't yet know for certain his connection with Joseph Lawson, who was also arrested and charged in connection with Crystal's case. We do know that a man named Stephen Lawson worked for Brooks Houck back at the time of Crystal's disappearance, and we believe that Joseph is his son. So again, there are connections. You can see that web developing, but we don't yet know what. What has Stephen Lawson said over the last month that led to Brooks Houck, his arrest today? Or what have others said? Will there be other arrests? There is some indication we are getting that yes, there will be other arrests, but certainly today's is the biggest and the one most long awaited for.
Absolutely. I mean, but other arrests could be extremely.
I think what they try to do is they try to put as much pressure on one person, right, to get somebody else to talk. Because people don't have to talk, people don't have to rat on somebody else. But if you put enough pressure on one person, that might get that one person to come forward and give you bits of evidence, but nobody's going to talk unless the person that they're talking about, they feel confident, in my opinion, is going to be arrested, because if they've unalived somebody before, they're probably going to unalive somebody again. So, got to be very careful, and that's what sometimes takes a long time.
Indicative of what happened here and why it happened and how this murder was carried out, according to prosecutors and their theory. Now, any more information about bringing her home, about finding Crystal Rogers' remains?
When the FBI took over the case a few years ago, Sherry Ballard said they were very frank with her. And they said, we're not here to give.
See, like I said last week, I think that's going to be a trend in the next millennium here is, and a lot of it has to do with the whole, Rex Heuermann case and how speedy that thing went along. I think that the bringing in extra people sometimes is going to help put a lid on some of these cases because, especially the ones that just go unsolved for so long after repeated attempts for family and victims to demand other people look into the cases. And sometimes it falls onto deaf ears. But I think it's going to be a trend now when some of these cases are breaking because of involvement of the FBI and other investigative agencies.
Giving Crystal. Apparently, they did not feel that was going to happen or was likely, but they said, we are here to give Crystal justice. That certainly seems to indicate they have no remains. They don't have maybe immediate hope of recovering any remains, but they believe they have evidence to hold those responsible for her disappearance and her murder, hold them and bring them to justice.
What about Dad? What about Tom?
The last thing you want to be is interrogated by the FBI. That's not going to go well.
Tommy Ballard, who, was
We've
out
heard
there.
Nothing and
He was out there leading the charge all along, right? Very, very vocal, very loud, that he's going to find his daughter. He's going to, get a sense of justice. Anything on his murder?
not as of yet. It's been assumed by many all along that his murder is directly tied to Crystal's. Hard to argue against that. Sherry Ballard has said that if they find who murdered Crystal, they'll find who murdered Tommy. But we have yet to hear any direct evidence, any indication that there are any developments in that specific part of this case. But there are two schools of thought here. Tommy was close to something, close to finding out something. That's what Sherry believed at the time, and that's why he's dead. Or, like you said, he was very loud. He was out there. He was vowing never to give up. He was vowing never to leave Brooks Houck alone until he found something out. So was he too close to something, or was that brashness just a little too much for someone to take and they wanted to silence him?
Yeah, I'll tell you what, in all these years and covering all these cases, the most powerful force in a missing person's search is usually the parent who is looking for their son, their daughter, whether it's a small child or an adult child. That love, that bond is so powerful. And that's how cases stay front and center, period. That's what.
All right. So we're going to get out of this now. We might come back to it a little later because there's been more updates on this. But what I want to do now is go to another great police work case. And this involves Susan Morphew, who's anybody's been covering for the past while. So I'm going to play this clip here because this is 9 days ago from Fox 31 Denver. But they found her remains. So let's go. We know that, right? So let's go to this. Whoops. Yep, I was right.
Breaking news here at 9 as we track huge breakthroughs in the case of a missing Colorado woman who made international headlines.
We're getting new reaction from prosecutors and Suzanne Morphew's family and friends after her remains were discovered just miles from where the mother of two was last seen.
Yeah, here's a map of the area. Suzanne Morphew's remains discovered in Saguache County near the town of Moffett. That's about 40 miles and a 40-minute drive from the home she shared with her husband and her children there near Poncha Springs.
Fox 31 has been following the Suzanne Morphew case.
So she went missing 3 years ago after she disappeared in Colorado. And one of the main suspects in this case, obviously, is the husband. Last week, I believe they found her finally. And that's not easy to do. So hats off again to law enforcement that never give up.
From very early on, starting on May 10th, 2020, when Suzanne was reported missing. Neighbors saying that it looked like she was going on a bike ride. Nearly a year later, her husband was arrested and charged with murder. In April of 2022, those charges were dropped. Her remains were found on Friday, and today the coroner made positive.
So she was reported missing May 10th, 2020. Her husband was arrested in 2021. They dropped the murder charges against the husband later. And then fast forward all the way to 2023, September 22nd, they found her body and remains were identified as Susan Morphew. So it's her.
Identification.
Fox 31 Live in Chaffee County tonight. Evan Krugel and Nicole Fierro getting new reaction from family, friends, and law enforcement. And we start with Evan.
Jeremy, it has been an emotional afternoon and evening here in Salida. Just moments ago, a small group gathered here downtown to pay their respects to Suzanne, many hoping this is the beginning of closure after more than 3 years of uncertainty. Still so many questions in this community, but here's what we know so far today. Those big new developments. According to the district attorney's office, Morphew's body was found on Friday near the town of Moffett. Now, get this, it was by investigators who were working on a case completely unrelated to this one. Those remains were...
Okay, so we're going to go here, like we always do, to the map. And I apologize if I'm really bad at this, but it is what it is. So her remains were found close to Moffett, which is right here. And I'm still never spelling it right. I always put the E on it. But this is in Colorado, so she was found somewhere in here. And I believe they live up in here, but I'm not sure. Again, beautiful place. Look at that. Wide open, beautiful part of the country here. It's just amazing. All right, so let's go back to the video.
40 miles south of where Morphew was last seen. You mentioned her husband, Barry, was arrested and charged with murder back in May of 2021. Those charges dropped in April of last year without prejudice. And that word is key because it means the case could still be refiled at a later date.
See, I mean, right? You go back here.
At a later date, criminal defense expert George Brockler says the discovery of a body and the could still be
Whoops, I keep missing it. I mean, you take a look at this image, right? I don't know when this picture was taken, but I mean, these people look fairly happy, right? So you can't, she's holding the little dandelion here. You can't tell by this image here whether these people are actually really happy or not. I mean, she looks happy, right?
The case could still be refiled at a later date. Criminal defense expert George Brockler says the discovery of a body and the potential for that DNA evidence is a big deal.
Yeah, listen, the condition of a body that has been exposed to the elements that don't just include normal decomposition or the weather, but also critters, that's real too. The condition of that body is going to probably provide some significant limitation to determining things like cause of death. It's not a barrier to it. We find this stuff out all the time. The science guys, the forensic guys are wizards, but it could create a bit of a problem.
Now, the district attorney down in Saguache County tells me she is expecting to release more information in the weeks to come. Unclear what that information could.
But, you know, like I say, you know, it's sometimes probably better to have remains than to not have remains. Because technology only gets better, right? So, you know, I would rather have the remains than not have the remains.
Be the Colorado Bureau of Investigation says no arrests have been made since that body was found, and the cause of death has still not been determined. We're live tonight in Salida. Ethan Krugel, Fox 31.
Evan, thank you.
I mean, like I'm saying, you know, there's a possibility that they might not find the cause of death right this very second, but that doesn't mean they won't, you know, so we'll go right here.
It was Mother's Day 2020 in Chaffee County, Colorado, a beautiful part of the.
So this is more up to date here. This was done 4 days ago by Court TV.
Country with mountains, trees, nature, and beautiful homes like the one owned by Barry and Suzanne Morphew. Suzanne's 2 teenage daughters were on a camping trip and had plans to spend time with their mom.
I mean, I don't think this one is as cut and dry as the other one, Crystal Rogers, but I still believe it's a pretty good guess if you say the husband might have something to do with it. But like I said, it's not always the case, but I'm pretty confident by statistics and other factors that, like I said, 6 to 7 times out of 10, it's usually the significant other. I mean, she looks pretty happy right here too, right?
Later in the day.
I mean, she's a beautiful woman, right? So it's probably hard not to look happy, but you never know by a picture, right?
Wow. Suzanne's husband, Barry, was also away. He left early in the morning for a business trip just north of Denver in Broomfield. But those plans for that nighttime Mother's Day celebration for the Morphew family never happened. That's because Suzanne was...
I mean, you just had a retired police officer that was upset that his wife was divorcing him, and he went out to California and shot up a whole bunch of people. So that happened just a few weeks ago at that biker bar. So, you know, it's almost always the husband.
Reported missing by a neighbor after no one was able to contact her. The search for Suzanne was immediate but unsuccessful. Then, as the months went by, suspicion grew around Barry. He was arrested and charged with her murder, and more details were revealed. A mysterious tranquilizer dart cap was found in the laundry. Barry was seen dumping trash bags all over Broomfield. And Suzanne's of Barry. And now this week, the skeletal remains of Suzanne were found about 50 minutes south of the Morphew home while investigators were searching for another missing woman. All of this has made the case even more complicated and raised many more questions, which we will answer tonight as we continue our investigation into the murder of Suzanne Morphew.
I'm Vinny Politan. Great to have you with us here on Closing Arguments this hour, talking about the case of Suzanne Morphew. And this is one we've been covering and tracking since 2020, when Suzanne went missing. On Mother's Day, of all days, she goes missing on Mother's Day. And for 3 years, it's a missing persons case / murder investigation. Her husband had been charged at one point before she was even found, but now her remains have been recovered. And this is a major development in the case for many.
I mean, it's just great. Like I said, it's just great police work, not giving up, not taking no for an answer, sticking with the facts, going to where the leads take you to, never giving up hope. Great police work.
Many reasons. This is, first of all, for the family, for her daughters, who can now.
Because, I mean, there's other crimes, right? Sometimes you can't put a lot of resources into a crime that happened 3 or 4 years ago, because there's other crimes that are happening right now, and you try to solve the crimes or get evidence for the crimes. You can. It's got to be tough. You know, it's definitely probably not easy. So it's just great police work.
Have a burial and have mom rest in peace at some point. For investigators, it should provide some more information than they have about what happened to Suzanne.
I mean, it's not like, okay, well, this person's missing, so let's stop all other crimes from happening for a year or two, and we'll focus on this. That just doesn't happen.
Also gives us now a location, another location, as part of this entire investigation. Now, that location is in an area now that some locals are calling the Boneyard because of remains that are being recovered and searches that are being done for missing people. And you saw in the open, we're talking about Colorado, this beautiful area. It's like nature, not an area that you would associate with people dumping bodies.
But it is the best place to do it, you know, because of that reason, right? I mean, years ago, I remember they used to dump bodies here in New Hampshire all the time because, you know, back in the days of the mob, you know, you get rid of somebody in Massachusetts, and it's easy to come over here and just dump the body because it's out of the wood, in the woods. Nobody would ever suspect it, and you probably wouldn't find the body for a long time. So, you know, it does happen, and I would think that that's probably the reason why. I mean, it's just not something people are going to think of, right?
Committing murders and discarding their victims. But something's going on out there. Something's going on. And where she's found, again, locals are saying, what, again, another body? So for the case that prosecutors originally had, remember, they charged Barry Morphew with the murder. That case is now more complicated usually when you have someone who is a suspect, and he was more than a suspect.
I'll be right back again.
He was a defendant at one point before those charges were dropped without prejudice, meaning they could refile charges if they believe they have the evidence to do so. But now, based upon where these remains are found, now you've got to, if you want to charge Barry Morphew, you've got to somehow, some way be able to place him in that area. And on Mother's Day, he's not there, which means you've now got to figure out, did he have an opportunity to go there at any point? Also look at those remains and when were they placed there? Is it possible that they were in one place, now they're somewhere else? I don't know. A lot of unanswered questions there. Like I said, it's getting more complicated, but you do have more evidence. So what is Barry Morphew saying and his defense team tonight? They're saying, well, look at those missing people. Look at all the other missing people. Don't look at Barry. Don't point the finger at him. Don't point the finger at him. Find out what happened to all these people, some of whom are still missing, others whose remains are being found. And remember, when they found Suzanne Morphew, they were looking for someone else in a missing persons case, and they came upon the remains. So let's take a look at the statement from Barry Morphew's attorney. Again, remember, he was charged with murder. They dropped the charges, but he's still obviously on the radar for investigators here. Here's the statement from Barry Morphew's attorney. It was the Saguache County officials that fortunately stumbled onto Suzanne's remains last week while looking for another missing woman, Edna Quintana. What needs to be done, instead of pointing fingers at Barry Morphew, is asking the officials about the number of missing people and number of human remains that have been recovered in or from Saguache County.
This is the problem with this case, because it's not, I don't think it's as cut and dry as just this guy doing it. They're going to have to get as much evidence as they possibly can to charge this guy, because there's a lot of questions.
In the recent past, whatever happened to Crystal Reisinger, Edna Quintana, Suzanne, the man whose remains were found by Saguache County Sheriff's Office in the foothills on July 26, 2023, or the remains of the person found in another area in Saguache County last weekend? What were the circumstances of their disappearances? What is the cause and manner of death of remains in the area? What happened to them? Are they looking for other remains in this area? So you can see what will happen if he's ever charged again. I mean, they're going to point the finger. There's someone else out there.
I mean, they're going to have the same problem here in Massachusetts with Brian Walsh. But like I said, it's almost given, right, that it's usually always the husband, but that's not always the case, right? So you can make a point, right? And I think the defense in this case has a lot going for them, but that can change.
Who's killing a lot of people. Let's get some more information. Joining me tonight in Saguache County, reporter for our affiliate Scripps News Denver, Claire Levezzo-Rio joins us. I say it with a little Italian accent, sorry, 5 years of Italian. Claire, thanks so much for joining us. First thing I want to know, describe this area for people who have never been there, where Suzanne Morphew's remains have been recovered.
Vinny, good evening. Well, this is a very rural area. I'm standing about 2 miles south of the town of Moffett, and usually there's not a lot of activity here. There's a Dollar General in town, and that is about it. One local described to me that you could pass through this town and blink and just miss it. That is what one local told me today, but there was a lot of activity here. I was the only reporter here today alongside my photographer, Ethan, and we watched as investigators just about a football field from Colorado 17 from the roadway, as more than 36 investigators were combing through this brush. And Saguache County, this is a vast area, even though the town of Moffett is.
So, I mean, she ain't kidding, right? So this is Moffett here. And I'm zoomed in pretty close here. There's Grammy's Kitchen, Dollar General that she was just talking about. High Valley Retail Cannabis. That place looks really good. It's closed now. But it opens at 10 a.m. It's a dispensary. It's awesome. I mean, let's just make pot legal. Is it that hard to do? Kush Burger Joint. Temporarily closed. So as you can see, there's like not a lot here. It's just main artery here. There's a school. There was a burger joint. And that's it. And if you back away, it's nothing. But let's see what happens when we back out of here even more. So there's Moffett there. There's Denver. And that's where he was. He was staying at a hotel, I think, somewhere up in here. Broomfield or something. Broomfield right there. So this is where he was at the Holiday Inn, apparently using the garbage here. So that's quite a ways, but it's not, you know, too much out of the realm. All right, so let's go back to the video.
Small. This is a vast county. It's very expansive. They were combing through this brush searching for answers. And a CBI official here on scene.
So apparently they weren't looking for her. They were looking for another person. And they ended up finding her. So
He confirmed with me that this search was indeed related to Suzanne Morphew. And we have some exclusive video to share with you if we're able to pull
what
that
did
up.
you just say? I was talking. Sorry.
Here on scene, he confirmed with me that this search was indeed related. A football field from Colorado 17 from the roadway, as more than 36 investigators were combing through this brush. And Saguache County, this is a vast area. Even though the town of Moffett is small, this is a vast county. It's very expansive. They were combing through this brush searching for answers. And a CBI official here on scene, he confirmed with me that this search was indeed related to Suzanne Morphew. And we have.
So there you go. I mean, I stand corrected. They were actually searching for her. See, you can't listen to rumors. So I wonder why they were searching here. They must have gotten a tip or something.
Some exclusive video to share with you if we're able to pull that up to show you exactly some of the heavy machinery that they were using this afternoon. They were using a backhoe, some shovels. They were sifting through the dirt here. And we watched that backhoe dig deep holes into this ground. And it is almost desert-like.
I mean, the odds of them finding bodies or remains after 3 years or so in areas like this have to be astronomically low because, you know, not only do you have the person who probably dumped her here, but also you have wild animals, scavenger birds, everything else. To find any remains is pretty good work.
Out here, a very different landscape than Denver, where our station is based over 3 hours away from where we are here in Saguache County. Later in the afternoon, CBI, the Colorado Bureau of Investigation, confirmed with everyone through a news release that this indeed was the culmination of a multi-day search related to the discovery of Suzanne Morphew's remains. But they also told us that CBI is searching for another woman out here in Saguache County, Edna Quintana, who you spoke about earlier. But investigators at CBI, they tell us, the agency says that those two searches are unrelated. They are not connected. They are making that clear distinction this afternoon. But they are continuing the search for Edna. But the search for Suzanne Morphew, that has concluded after a multi-day search after her remains were found a week ago today. I talked to some locals out here in the town of Moffett, which is less than 200 people, and they tell me they don't want the discovery of the remains of Suzanne's remains to define their town. They say a lot of good comes out of the town of Moffett, despite her remains being discovered here. Now, she lived in Chaffee County, which is nearby, but it's still 45 miles away. It is not in the county where she lived. So people say they don't want this to define their small town, and they're, shocked by the national media presence that has been here over the past week. But again, today we were the only reporter and only photographer here that was here during the culmination of this multi-day search. But it was quite an impressive thing to see how many agencies were out here just digging through this vast, expansive county right here in Saguache County, Colorado.
Claire, let me ask you, in the area where her remains are found, how far from that road, the main road that cuts through, is it?
So, I mean, yeah, that was my question exactly. So let's, hold on a second. I'm gonna go here. She said Chaffee County, right? I actually almost spelt it right the first time. So here's Chaffee County. And she was found in Moffett. So, I mean, it's an hour and 57 minutes. Why did she say, well, that's the county, right? So I think they're from here. Salida. So that's about 45 minutes. So it's not that far. But he was up here at a hotel in Broomfield. So, but apparently he's a construction business or something. So, I mean, probably travels quite a bit to do work. So, I think if anything, he unalive it the night before and then staged everything. But that's just my opinion. Whoops. I did it again. I'm such an idiot. Oh, we got to do this. We got to do this for the idiot in the house. Ready? All right. So let's go to the video, please. Just a little bit longer. Here we go.
Would someone have to drive it? Is it far enough, or maybe they'd have to drive into the brush there? And can you even drive into the brush?
So at first,
She's standing in the brush.
CBI wasn't telling us the exact location of Suzanne's remains. They were not telling us. They just said they were found near the town of Moffett. But today, through their release, they told us that this search that was related to her case, they told us that it was where her remains were found. And this was not even a football field from the roadway. I'd say about half a football field from the roadway. And this brush, it's thick in spots, but I mean, you can see it easily from the roadway. There are much more discrete spots where a body or remains could be. It was very close to the roadway when we arrived here. And when we first arrived, when we spotted law enforcement here, we saw them right away when my photographer and I pulled up.
Something else that strikes me. I mean, this is the risky part for a killer, to dispose of a body. I'm not seeing a ton of traffic there. Any idea how much traffic comes through there on a normal day or a normal night? Like, is it possible that someone could pull off on the side of the road, no one would
talked to some of the locals who live and work here in the town of Moffett. They told me maybe there's about 20 members of law enforcement total in this entire area, in the entire county that they see on a regular basis.
All right, let's go for a little ride, shall we? So this is just to get an indication of where we are here. So this is Moffett, and this is Route 17 here. Yes. Okay, so and hold on a second. Obviously, we're going north here. This would be south. This way. This is Route 60. I mean, I've never been to Colorado, so I don't know if this is a route or not. I mean, this is a pretty good road here. I mean, we just passed that sign, so I have no idea where I'm going. Oops. So we are almost outside of Moffett, right? Turn around. I mean, there are homes here, right? Farms and stuff. Colorado, I'd love to get out to Colorado at some point. Coffee art? This is, you know, if you're on one of these side roads here, Highway 17, what's this road here? So this is Highway 17. No, we're on 17. So this is this is 60. Yeah, I mean, if you went down one of these roads, you're probably going to be a little bit more secluded. But let's take a little drive through Moffett here. Yeah, I mean, it's, I don't know, right? Once you get out here, it's much more isolated. But this road here looks like a main road to me, so I'm pretty sure there's cars coming up and down this road all the time. So if you're going to dump a body out in here, but who knows? Maybe somebody saw something. That's why they got the tip. Maybe that's why they were searching there. So let's go back to the video. I just wanted to take a look at the landscape.
And
because right here, they look like they're in deep brush here, right? And that's where she was standing, where those mountains we saw.
tell me that they stop in the Dollar General to grab a drink every night, and that is how they know that they're around. They do patrols, but they say the law enforcement is good in this area. They do not, that's why they don't want this one discovery to define their town.
Yeah, I think that's where she's standing, is right in here.
That is something they wanted to drive home to me, that good things happen in the town of Moffett. And they don't want this one discovery to define their town. And that's something they really wanted to drive home. But they said it is a vast area and it's impossible for the amount of law enforcement here to patrol.
Yeah, so they're not on
their town
there.
And that's something they really wanted to drive home. But
This is a dirt road here. I don't know what road this is. So yeah, in here, you're not going to see a lot of other cars.
Said it is a vast area and it's impossible for the amount of law enforcement here to patrol what you're seeing behind me. I mean, it's just beautiful looking around. The mountain range is expansive. There's 14.
But there is like a house right there, right? So if they're searching in here, there's a house right there.
I mean, it's just beautiful looking around. The mountain range is expansive. There's 14ers here like you've never seen if you haven't been.
And how about the search for Edna
Yeah, it's beautiful until you get attacked by a grizzly bear, right?
Quintana? Is that continuing in the same general area?
That is. The search for her continues in Saguache County. We are learning that is completely unrelated, according to CBI, Colorado Bureau of Investigation. That is completely unrelated to Suzanne Morphew's case. That was something new that we...
Years ago, I took, in my college classes, a whole bunch of, technically was going to be at some point a reporter, media relations and mass communications and radio and video broadcasting. And yeah.
Learned today from their agency that is completely unrelated to Suzanne's case. That search will continue for Edna.
It's not as easy as it looks. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
And have we heard anything from the family today? Many times when a missing person is found, the family may say something. I mean,
you're standing in the middle of nowhere, right? You got this guy talking to you in your earpieces here. People around you with sometimes bright lights. Weather conditions are not always perfect, right? So there's a delay.
Barry Morphew's attorney has released statements, but have Suzanne's daughters said anything? And do we know anything about any plans about a memorial or something for Suzanne?
I have reached out to Suzanne's family for comment, but I've talked to several people across town in neighboring Poncha Springs, and they have installed banners in her memory because they want to keep the fight for justice alive for Suzanne. That is something that people tell me, that they may not have known Suzanne personally, but what they do know is her story. And that is an overriding message that I've learned staying in neighboring Salida. In the city of Salida, I've spent, this is my third day here. I stayed in a motel over the past 3 days, and talking to people here, I've really learned that that's the.
So did she say Salida? Salida? So yeah, that's what I thought. Like, so give me a second here. Salida. Yeah, so that's 47 minutes. So it's 47 minutes from Salida to Moffett, approximately.
Message. Not everyone knew her personally, but they knew her story and they related to her. She was a mother of 2. She would, they would meet her.
Was that the same camper that keeps driving by?
Not everyone
so
knew
weird.
her personally, but they knew her story and they related to her. She was a mother of.
See that guy right there? He's been driving by like 3 or 4 different times. I thought earlier, I think he was coming this way, and now he's going that way. That's weird.
2. She would, they would meet her, just out around town. They meet her at the convenience store. They'd run into her at Walmart. They would know her from around town, and that is why they feel like they relate to her story. And
There's always a Walmart, and there'll be a white car or white vehicle. I can guarantee that. In any investigation, there's always a Walmart and a white vehicle.
want to keep her memory alive as much as they can in town. So I wouldn't be surprised if there were more vigils and more
The white vehicle will have nothing to do with the case.
memorials to keep the fight for justice alive as we learn more about this investigation and it continues to unfold here in Saguache County.
And something else that we've heard from some reporting that some locals, because of the number of these cases that seem to be in that area, that they're calling it the boneyard now. Have you heard anything like that because of the recovery of remains that have seemingly happened in the recent past in an area where you wouldn't expect to find anything like this happening?
I talked to a couple employees today at the Dollar General here in the town of Moffett, and they tell me they've never heard of something like that, and they don't want it to be referred to as that. In neighboring Salida, people say they have heard that. They have heard that. It's just so vast that a lot of people, like I said, law enforcement can't possibly patrol the whole area. Many people own this land, but one woman I spoke to said that some pieces and parts of this land haven't seen footprints in 10 to 15 years.
Wow.
So that gives you some perspective.
Yeah, who the hell would ever go out here?
There, that a lot of this area is untouched, even though it's owned. A lot of people own this land.
It's like not like you pick a location to go to, and this is one of the top ones in here. Probably going to the mountains, maybe.
Land behind me and around me, but it sits untouched, even though it's owned.
Claire Levetzel-Rio,
All right, so we're going to go now, play this, and then I'll get out of here. I'm going to go back to Crystal Rogers again here, because this is the latest on this case here. And I have to do this because, it's really hard for me to find this shit while I'm watching another one. So those are my problems. But let's go to, and this was the news drop on the Crystal Rogers case. This was a day ago. So we're fast forwarding from 9 days to yesterday.
And right now, tonight at 4, the murder mysteries in Bardstown are becoming clearer with each different court appearance. Breaking news from the arraignment of Brooks Houck this afternoon in Nelson County. Houck appearing via live video for his first court appearance in the murder of Crystal Rogers. And then the surprise no one saw coming. Prosecutors dropping a major bombshell in this case, which has been full of them. Key evidence in the murder of Crystal's father, Tommy Ballard. Our coverage begins right now at 4. Hello, everybody, and thanks for joining us this afternoon. I'm Doug Proffitt. The courtroom packed with family members stunned to learn that prosecutors have the gun they believe was used to kill Tommy Ballard, who was actively leading the search for his daughter. Members stunned to learn that prosecutors have the gun. Tommy Ballard.
I mean, look at this. That used to be the hairstyles years ago. I had a hairstyle just like this, right? Nowadays, you don't see any of this stuff. This is probably a good thing. Gone, right?
Ballard. Our coverage begins right now at 4. Hello, everybody, and thanks for joining us this afternoon. I'm Doug Proffitt. The courtroom packed with family members stunned to learn that prosecutors have the gun they believe was used to kill Tommy Ballard, who was actively leading.
I mean, that was good-looking hair back then. I have to say, like, I don't know why people shied away from stuff like that. Now I don't have any hair at all.
The search for his daughter.
Well, I do, but just whatever.
WHS 11 Shay McAllister and chief photojournalist Phil Merle are in Bardstown right now. And Shay, everyone was there to learn if Houck's $10 million bond would hold up. So how did this news about Tommy Ballard come out today?
Oh, Doug, well, when you think about a courtroom hearing here, there's a lot of things you expect to happen, and especially in an arraignment. And those things did happen. We talked about the bond reduction. They talked about the thousands, literally thousands of pages of evidence in the case. They also talked about a possible move of venue later on for trial. Here's what we didn't expect. A bombshell in another unsolved Bardstown case. The prosecutor telling us not only are they investigating Tommy Ballard's death, they think they know who was responsible. In front of a packed courtroom, another shocker in the small-town murder mystery that just keeps twisting and turning. For the first time, we hear who investigators believe killed Tommy Ballard. Special prosecutor Shane Young saying they are currently...
If you ever want to have a really good time, just head on down to your district court to like a civil trial day or a civil court date. It's just one of the most laughable experiences you'll probably ever experience. I mean, people just straight crazy.
testing a gun that belonged to Nick Houck.
We're investigating the murder of Tommy Ballard.
I mean, people will say the dumbest things in front of a judge. It's just absolutely weird. I think it's actually quite, amusing.
That could potentially be related to this case. We are waiting for testing to come back on the firearm we believe was used to murder.
And everybody thinks they're a lawyer, right? It's like, just shut up. Just don't say anything.
Tommy Ballard, a firearm that we purchased from Nicholas Houck, who was using a fake name when he sold the rifle.
The prosecutor going into detail about why he believes it will be a match.
We know it's the same caliber. There's 5 criteria that they're looking at, and so far it's matched 4 of the 5 criteria.
In the front row of the courtroom, the Ballard family looked stunned, Sherry's eyes filling with tears. It was a moment this family has been waiting for.
That feel real good. We thought it all along, but after prosecuting Shane made that statement, we feel a whole lot better, and I think it won't be too long.
He thinks Nick Houck could be the next arrest, but he and Brooks weren't the only ones from the Houck family mentioned in the courtroom. Prosecutor Shane Young accused the family of violating Kentucky law by secretly recording grand jury proceedings.
Defendant's sister, Rhonda McEvoy Houck, brother Nicholas Houck, mother Rosemary Houck, brother-in-law Al.
You in trouble. You are in trouble.
Alex McAvoy and Rosemary Houck's live-in boyfriend, Larry Mott, all recorded, secretly brought in recorders and recorded the grand jury. I've been practicing here, Your Honor, for 25.
How does that happen? Right? I mean, how does that literally happen? You cannot get through these detectors. I mean, it's just, I can't even. I had like a pocket knife, like a Swiss Army knife. They took that from me. I never found it again.
5 years in this state, and I've yet ever heard of anyone recording a grand jury.
He alleged the family was trying to get their story straight, trying to solicit.
That Swiss Army knife, that knife has saved my life like 9 times probably. It's a screwdriver. It has everything you need to get out of a major problem, and they took it from me. Never found it again.
Identify a lie.
It's been stated before, the truth will set you free. The problem in this matter is the truth
Can opener, wine cork, it had everything.
will imprison Brooks Houck. And we're asking Your Honor to keep the bond the same.
The defense did submit a request to lower the bond. It was what we thought would be the most interesting part of court today, but it was only covered briefly. The defense wants it lowered from $10 million to $500,000. Attorney Brian Butler called the current bond oppressive.
The grand jury out of Nelson County that set this bond, I had been practicing 28 years. I had never heard of a bond even coming close to this.
And I can tell you, I've never asked for a $10 million bond. This is the first multimillionaire I've prosecuted for murder.
Young alleges Houck's construction companies, rental properties, and real estate is worth $10 million, if not more. He says this bond is fair for someone who has so much to lose. Ultimately, the judge asked for more time to review the new information. He says he'll make a decision later. And as the courtroom emptied, we had some questions for Rosemary Houck, Brooks' mom.
Rosemary, the special prosecutor accused you of violating Kentucky law today. What do you have to say about that?
Your son's involved in the deaths of
Did your son Nick kill Tommy Ballard?
Rogers. Anything you'd like to
Did your son kill Tommy Ballard, Miss Houck? Is there anything you'd like to say?
She didn't stop to provide any answers about her son Nick and the new
No, really? Did you actually think she was going to say something?
accusations that he killed Tommy Ballard, but Tommy's dad had these final words.
I'm hoping he'll be the next one arrested.
In a case that continues to stun Kentucky and the nation, another bombshell comes out of court. One the Ballard family hopes is bringing them that much closer to real justice.
I mean, you just got to feel for the families. It's just absolutely, just horrible what they got to go through. And this is just the beginning. Now they got to go through, hopefully a trial.
And the next court date is set for February, right here in Nelson County. Of course, eventually it won't be here in Nelson County. The defense already told us today they do plan to ask for a change for this trial to be held in a different county so that Brooks Houck can have a fair trial. Now let's dive into that a little bit more. Everyone in the United States has the right to a fair trial, something that Houck's defense team is working hard to guarantee for their own client.
So change of venue, importing a jury selection. I mean, why? It's Kentucky.
So what would a trial with this much media attention actually look like? Judges have relied on 6 major ways to combat press publicity on a jury. One is a change of venue. When the defendant could ask to move the trial to a different area, it would take the trial out of Nelson County into a different county here in Kentucky. Conversely, judges could also bring a jury from another place. So the jurors would not come from Bardstown. They would go through an extensive void.
That's probably going to happen. This one here, importing a jury.
Your process to see if they've heard of it or they know about the case. Juries from other areas might know less or haven't been exposed to the media coverage compared to people right here in Bardstown and Nelson County. There is still a very lengthy process to go before we reach a trial. It could be more than a year before we see Brooks on trial. In fact, today, Brian Butler, the defense attorney in this case, told the judge he doesn't think it's realistic that there will be a trial in 2024. He's already looking ahead to 2025.
So we'll be following this one. I'll be following this one pretty close. But once they get into the courts, like I say, I don't really, the trial I'll probably follow, but I mean, there's really nothing you can do now. It's just speculation, right? Just it's going to come down to a set of jurors. That's it. Really, it's their opinion that really matters. But my opinion, this guy's guilty as all hell. But innocent until proven guilty.
Well, as you know, Brooks is not the only person in this case. There is a co-defendant. His name is Joseph Lawson, and he was arrested just a couple of weeks before Brooks. A Nelson County grand jury indicted Joseph Lawson on 2 charges: conspiracy to commit murder and tampering with physical evidence. Lawson was arrested on September 8th. He was arraigned shortly thereafter. The court entered a not guilty plea on both of those charges. The bond was set at $500,000, and his next court date is October 26th. Well, taking a closer look now at this investigation, it has been 8 years in the making. It has certainly been a lot of developments, much like today. Every time there is something happening in this case, there's a twist and a turn. Let's look back now at some of those developments.
Let's not. I'm going to get out of here. I've been here over 2 hours. Probably continue this, like I said, down the road a little bit, but I just wanted to come on and do my live for the week with the whole Fights Back, LE Fights Back. So very good police work in all 3 of these cases, from Charlotte Senna to Susanna Morphew, and now Morphew. Did I say that right? I don't know. To the Crystal Rogers case. Excellent police work, and that's what you got to do to get these guys. All right, so I'm going to play my outro. I'll probably come back on in a little while to do another live. We may go into a little bit more of the Kimberly Moreau case, but we'll see. Right now, let's. I hope everybody has a good weekend. If I don't see you again, if anybody's watching on the replay, thank you very much. Please like and subscribe if you want. You don't have to. And I will be back later. Have a good day.